So far, so good. You've learned a lot of state capitals and states from me. But did you notice one tiny little mistake? That's right. If you were talking about Michigan and Wisconsin, I got the two backwards, and I have done this since I was a kid. I've always gotten it backwards. Alright. Wisconsin is directly north of Illinois, and Michigan is directly north of Indiana and also of Ohio. So, it's true that Wisconsin and Michigan are both north of Illinois. It just so happens that Michigan is north of Indiana and Ohio, and Wisconsin is north of Illinois. Okay, so actually, if you were to go northeast of Illinois, you'd run into Michigan. Okay, so yes, I got that wrong, and I'm correcting it now, and hopefully nobody will tag me for it, but they might. So anyway, all right. Now that we've talked about Michigan and Wisconsin, and I want to tell you that hopefully you won't make the same mistake I did. If you go directly north of Chicago, Illinois, you will hit Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Okay, and I'm correcting that for everybody here. So, if you go north of Chicago, Illinois, you'll land in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Alright, and hopefully that'll help you remember that. If you were to go northeast of Fort Wayne, Indiana, you'd land in Detroit. Alright, now, I'm sure you've heard of Columbia, South Carolina. But what you didn't know was that Columbia, South Carolina was also named after Christopher Columbus. So, you have Columbus, Ohio, and Columbia, South Carolina, and they were both named for Christopher Columbus. So hopefully that'll help you remember that. Alright, now there was a guy named Sir Walter Raleigh, R-A-L-E-I-G-H, and if you look up his history, you will find out that there was a city named after him, and that was Raleigh, North Carolina. So, if you were to travel north of Georgia, you would find South Carolina, which has the capital of Columbia, and if you were to travel north of that and ended up in North Carolina, you would find the city of Raleigh, which is the capital of North Carolina. Now, there happened to have been at one time a city called Richmond that was near the city of London, England. Well, later on, London kind of took over Richmond. So now Richmond is a part of London, England. Okay? But at the time that Richmond, Virginia was named, there was an actual separate city from London called Richmond. So, Richmond, Virginia is named after the city that used to be next to London, England. Alright. Now, there was at one time a guy named by the name of Charles Clendenin. And this Charles Clendenin had a town named after him. And this town was once called Charlestown. Charlestown, for Charles Clendenin. It later became Charleston, West Virginia. Now, ironically, there also is a Charleston, Illinois. Okay, believe it or not, there's a Charleston, Illinois, and there's also a Charleston, West Virginia. And that's how I remember West Virginia's capital, because I happen to have a Charleston, Illinois. Alright. Now, there was a guy named John Harris Jr., and his father was John Harris Sr. And John Harris Jr. named a town after his father, which was called Harrisburg. And this town became the capital of Pennsylvania. So, if you were to look east of Pittsburgh and west of Philadelphia, you would find a town called Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and that happens to be the capital of Pennsylvania. Alright. Now, I'm going to let you guys do some research on this. There was a town called Dover, Delaware, and Dover happens to be the capital of Delaware. But what about Connecticut? Okay, now we're starting to go north again. Okay, so north and east of Pennsylvania is a state called Delaware, and in that state is the capital Dover. Now, if we're going to talk about the state of Connecticut, we're going to talk about the Hartford. Now, I'm sure you've seen the Hartford on television. They have insurance, and they have financial things that they do. And so if you hear about the Hartford Group, they are based in Connecticut. Now, I know the town was not named after that, but it's an easy way to remember the town. All right. Then we have Providence, Rhode Island. Okay. And we have the famous Boston Tea Party. Now, where did the Boston Tea Party take place? Well, it took place in Boston, Massachusetts. And Massachusetts just happens to have the capital of Boston. So, Providence, Rhode Island, Boston, Massachusetts. Now, north of New York City is the capital of New York, called Albany. So, if you were to go to north of New York City, you would find the capital of New York, which is Albany. And that concludes part 2 of my lesson of the state capitals. I will tell you more in a future video, so stay tuned.